Welcome to Evangelicalish, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the American evangelical church, deconstruction, faith, and God's love through it all. And make sure and stay current on ish happenings on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at Evangelicalish. That's evangelical with an ish. Now to Paul, Jeremy, and April on this episode of Evangelical-ish.
Welcome into Evangelicalish. We are back. I'm Jeremy.
I'm April.
And I'm Paul.
And we did it. We made it through the intro. First week back after taking a summer break. Friends,
wait, Jeremy, you got to see this.
And those two guys.
It's time for April and those two guys.
I feel like that could be the name of the show. Maybe we rebrand it that. I'm good with that. So anyway, glad to be back. Couple of quick housekeeping things in case you have forgotten. There's a few things we want you to be a part of. One of those is the private Facebook group. You can go search Evangelicalish on Facebook. It is not the public one where we share clips and so on and so forth. It's a private group, super safe group. Good conversation happens in that space. So if you want to join it, just make sure you answer the questions as you come into the group. They're not hard. We just want to make sure that everybody is agreeing to be safe inside the group. And then secondly, if you want to join the Ish community, it's an extra layer of community, but then also the best part about it is that it supports the content that we're doing and it helps us continue to do exciting things. And, hopefully that means, more live shows and things like that in the future. So it's $4.99 a month, evangelicalish.com. You can just go there, sign up. There's a chat board. We share things on there. So we would love for you to be a part of either or both of those things. So I think that's the housekeeping, other than the fact that the elephant in the room is we have been off for a while.
That's the longest break. I was just thinking, we haven't even talked about the Barbie movie or Ben Shapiro burning Barbies and Greg Locke smashing a Barbie house, which he says was unrelated to the movie, but
yeah, okay,
whatever.
He said it was a bad Walmart knockoff of a Barbie house.
Yeah, but honestly, the thing that was the craziest was he smashed it with a baseball bat wrapped inside a Bible.
Yes.
Like literally using the Bible as a weapon.
Well, the word is our sword, April. So,
but it's not our bat.
Same difference. Tomato, I would say.
Oh my
yeah, no.
We did not break up. We are not
Jeremy,
dead.
your mic has gone out. It has shorted.
I think I got muted. Sorry.
There you
anyway,
are.
Continue.
I was just, we did not break up. We just had a busy summer and
yeah,
April,
I live in a new state now.
How's Kentucky, April?
It's fine. It's good, I guess. We live in Lexington, so it's a city, like city-ish. So it's nice that I actually have things I can go to. We have 3 Targets. And when I lived in Cleveland, Tennessee, we had one, and it was all the way on the other side of town. So I feel like a city girl again. And I'm originally from Dallas. So it's weird that I'm super excited about all these city things because I was used to it for so long, and then I got unused to it, and now I get to get used to it again. So, yeah.
Very good. Well, congratulations.
My voice got raptured, apparently.
Yes.
The Lord is starting us out easy tonight. Doesn't want to just take one of us, suck us up into the ether. So this is good. Good start.
Well, it's good to be back with you guys. We have missed being with you.
Yes, this is the longest break we've had. So
yeah,
but there's been it's been a wild. I feel like I've lived an entire lifetime this summer, and it doesn't still feel like it's necessarily slowing down, but that's okay. We're here and we're back.
Yeah, we're here. We're back. The world did not stop turning. You're right. An entire lifetime happened. including all of the things that we're going to get into tonight, which, is going to be good for the soul, maybe some venting, but then also it's kind of nice to take a little bit of a break from the weekly grind of the content. So anyway, excited to get into it.
We hear, or as Deion Sanders said, we coming.
we coming. Yeah, I ain't hard to find.
Well, let's just jump right in. I mean, there's so many things we could talk about. We had the first GOP debate. Was that a week ago? 2 weeks ago?
A couple of weeks ago, yeah.
A couple weeks ago. I don't know. That's happened. The primaries are ramping up for the election next year. And
primary. What?
Oh, yeah. Well,
I guess different places, but the Democrats are not having one apparently. So,
not to mention Trump got charged again, and
yes,
that happens about every third day. By the way,
yeah. It was like
as a mugshot now.
Can we just shout out Fulton County and the district attorney there for being like, no, we're going to process him just like we do every other criminal who comes through here. And I know that people were worried that he was going to get spin off of his mugshot or whatever, but it is glorious. It is everything I would have anticipated.
He turned it into merch immediately. And you know, he practiced his mugshot picture in the mirror so many times to get that like, I'm going to look tough and persecuted.
And he worked on the hair before the picture, I'm sure, as well.
Mm-hmm. Also, I thought it was ironic that, which I'm sure they did it on intentionally, I don't know, but literally the t-shirts that they're selling are the picture of Trump's mugshot, and it says on there, never surrender. But the mugshot is literally a picture of him surrendering.
Didn't he turn himself in?
He sure
like
did.
4 times at this point.
Never surrender except when you're charged and you have to be arraigned.
Well, and he was just found guilty today of defamation of a woman he was otherwise charged liable for molesting just a couple of months ago. And today he was declared guilty of defaming her. So
was it the same, the Eugene Carroll one?
Eugene Carroll, yeah, she sued him again.
I didn't know it was today.
Because he went out and said terrible things in an interview about her. And the judge today ruled like, we don't need a jury. You're guilty. And so we'll get together in January with a jury to decide how much money you owe this woman. So we have a former president who has now been found liable of sexual assault and then slandering the victim of that sexual assault. That's America today.
That is America today.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy is, April, the most trusted man in America, apparently.
Well, depending on who you talk to. I don't know if you all saw this, but a few weeks ago, there was a CBS poll that was released, and they polled Republicans, and they asked a bunch of questions, mostly about the election coming up and who they're going for. But one of the questions that was unsurprising, but also surprising, was who do you feel like what they tell you is true? Who can you trust? And at the top of the list was Donald Trump, that Donald Trump tells the truth. And he got a higher percentage response than friends and family, than conservative media, than religious leaders. People trust Christian Republicans trust Donald Trump more than their pastors. So
are we shocked by this though? Like does it surprise you? I feel like we're just finally like they just finally have the data to prove what kind of already existed, right?
Yes and no. I shouldn't be surprised. I guess I'm not surprised, but I'm still saddened by it. It's still disturbing. Like I haven't got numb to it yet, I guess, which maybe is good. I don't know, but it's still like, honestly, just the more he is charged, and the whole Eugene Carroll thing too. He was found liable for defaming her once already, then goes out and defames her again, and she just sues him again. Like, he's just, I don't think he's very smart. Like, he does not learn lessons. But also he doesn't seem to be losing any power among the people that have embraced him, which is the scary part.
I try to avoid using the word cult around all of this, but I looked up today the definition of the word cult, and at the center of it is religious veneration and devotion directed toward a particular figure, and that figure being trusted above others nearby the person in the cult. So, I mean, this is it. Like, I have people all the time that believe what Trump says and nobody else. You know, there is no other resource that can say any truth whatsoever. And that is, by definition, a cult.
Yeah. Well, and I find it really fascinating, you know, talking about him getting sued again and having to owe, I'm sure, millions and millions of dollars for at least this lawsuit that he continues to find himself in trouble with. I found it really fascinating that he, you know, he had to post bail to leave Fulton County Jail, and he used a bail bondsman. So that's really fascinating to me. And I don't know if it's probably a political move, but part of me is like, I wonder if the coffers are real low in the Trump camp right now, just because of all this money he's having to spend. I mean, he's stiffing people left and right. So my thought is that he's just, you know, if I was a bail bondsman, I wouldn't have taken him. But it's just so messy, and it seems like his life is like falling apart in front of us, and nobody cares. Like, as far as them, they just don't care. They believe that he is the Lord and Savior Donald Trump, and he has come to save America and make it great again, or whatever that means. And so it's just gotten really, really it's hard to watch, like that people have just divorced their morals so much, which, I mean, I guess probably tells you that they didn't have them in the first place, obviously. But it's just, I can't ever imagine a world like this when I was a kid, and now just seeing it play out in front of us, it is, as my grandpa would have said, beats all I ever saw.
Yeah. Well, and also, I don't know if y'all saw this interview that NPR did with Russell Moore, who, you know, used to be very high up in the SBC, got kicked out because he was not a Trump fan. But he said that he's had several pastors like confide in him that when they read like certain scripture in the words of Jesus from the pulpit, such as turn the other cheek and lay down your weapons, that some congregants have been complaining to the pastors, why are you preaching this woke liberal crap? And when the pastors respond and say, I'm literally quoting Jesus, they'll respond like, yeah, but that doesn't work anymore today.
Doesn't work anymore.
So you have
following Jesus a long time ago.
Right. You have these people who are professed Christians. They go to church. They are very Republican. They are now trusting the guy from The Apprentice over Jesus. Like, literally, they like Jesus is woke.
And the thing is, and I see a lot of the comments of like, Trump loves the uneducated and all of that. And he did make that statement once. But again, I want to remind people, like, I have friends and family members that are huge Trump followers, Fox News and right-wing media watchers, and they are not dumb people. They are highly educated, sophisticated, smart people. And so we kind of have to ask what happened, you know. And I think part of this is, you know, we talk about groomers in our culture today. The grooming is happening inside of churches. And grooming people to believe, oh, oppression is coming, and the rapture, and the tribulation, and 666, and so it's just been decades of building these end time scenarios in people's heads. And I think it's been the natural, and then partnering with right-wing politics. And I think this is the natural outgrowth of it. That, I mean, Jesus said the leaven of bad religion will cause the curse of Isaiah to be upon you, and you won't have eyes to see or ears to hear anymore. And I truly believe that's what we're seeing, is that this grooming of end times oppression, get us out of here, Jesus religion, got people in a position where a carnival barker could step up and say, just like in 1935 and 36 in Germany, sure, I am the one that can fix this for you. I am your savior. And they say, yes, you are.
And what's been really fascinating to me is having conversations with folks who are inside of evangelicalism, still very conservative in their theology. They don't like Trump, but because of what you're talking about, Paul, I've had several conversations with conservative evangelicals who are against Trump, but they now believe that he's like the Antichrist or something like that. Like in some way, shape, form, or fashion, these people believe that he has to play into the end times narrative. And it's because they've been groomed by the church that this is something that is, very real. It's going to happen. Revelation is literal, all of this kind of stuff. And obviously, as I think I can speak freely to say, the three of us have deconstructed certainly out of that, but it's challenging to watch people who even get it, right? Like even evangelicals who understand that Trump looks nothing like Jesus, but they still have to like place him in the narrative somewhere. And right, that's the troubling thing, because it continues to give him power, and it continues to give him credibility, right? Like he has to be elected because, he's going to be a leader. He's the Antichrist, that kind of thing. And it's just so disconnected from the truth that we see in the context of scripture, number one, but then also just it misses reality by a landslide.
I was actually about to say that if I still believed in all the end times and rapture, great tribulation, all the things, that I might think that Trump was the Antichrist, only because he's deceiving the elect, which is like part of it. And you're like, no one could ever deceive the elect. They have their eyes open. Like, we know what to expect. But then you have these people that they think Trump's part of some prophecy, is saving children from some deep underground sex ring, and that Trump is the ringleader. No, not the ringleader. He's destroying the ringleaders of all these children. It is amazing. Well, you've also got QAnon in the mix too, where there's like reptilians involved, and it's really hard to tell where like evangelicalism starts and QAnon ends. It's all
Marjorie Taylor Greene, our favorite, was on InfoWars yesterday saying Burning Man, the mud at Burning Man was a liberal plot to brainwash people to climate change. I mean, there is nothing that they can't build a cult around, and stripping away access to other views and saying there's only one person bringing truth is how, I almost hate to say it, but that's how sort of fascist dictators do their thing. That they tap into real angst of people and say, I am the one that's going to fix it for you, and don't believe anybody else out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you've ever watched documentaries about like David Koresh and his cult in Waco, that they interview these people who had either been a part of it at one point or had escaped, during the whole standoff with law enforcement and all of that. The whole thing is kind of fascinating and really fucked up. But by the way, there's the explicit.
We made it.
Yeah,
hold on. We made it 19 minutes.
19 minutes. We did
and isn't it ironic now that those right wingers are saying defund the FBI, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
With their Blue Lives Matter flag.
Yes, absolutely. a whole rabbit hole, but I'm gonna sidestep that.
Sorry, please continue, Jeremy.
You're good. You just caught my ADHD really well right there. And so, but when you hear these people talk, it's interesting hearing them, 30 years later, talking about how it, at some point, like they had this very traumatizing moment where they looked in the mirror after all the dust settled and everything, and they were like, how did I even get here? Like, why did I even believe any of this insanity? Like, it was clearly unstable, it was clearly out of control. But it's that age-old analogy that we've used before on this show, right? It's the slow temperature change that just boils the frog. And these folks have, from the, and we've talked about it, Paul, you brought this up, talking about like in the 70s with the Jerry Falwells and the Pat Robertsons of the world, and that, we've got to be pro-life because this is how we can control the people or whatever. It's been that slow temperature tick in the last 50 years in particularly, that they have just learned how to control people. And like you mentioned earlier, April, just manipulate the things inside of them that were already there.
Yeah, I think that's the scary thing about Christian nationalism. I don't think what we're seeing, like all these Trump supporters that are connecting this with Christianity and evangelicalism in some way, like that is Christian nationalism. But I don't believe that evangelicalism, like in and of itself, is Christian nationalist. There's some separation, but Christian nationalism takes almost every facet of evangelicalism and manipulates it and twists it for its own power and gain. Like being like suddenly, to be a good Christian and to be a good citizen of the world and to render to Caesar what is Caesar's. Like we need to vote Republican because that is God's way, and Democrats are evil and they're trying to indoctrinate your children and send your children to hell. And you've got this like, it goes from like, I really think for a lot of people, it actually comes from this idea that they're doing good, that they are saving people, because it's hard, like when you believe in a literal hell that people are going to be sent to, and you have been convinced of this, and if you don't speak up, their blood is going to be on your hands. That is a hard thing to tell someone to not do. Like if you genuinely believe that. But on the flip side, I also think there's a lot of bad faith actors who are in the movement for power, who are manipulating the scriptures because they want to stay in power. And I don't know that they necessarily believe all of the things that they are spewing, but they know how to work the system, and they know, except for Trump. Trump does not know what to say. Okay, this is a side trail. Did you guys see, this was like, I think it was in June or July, some rally that Trump spoke at. Someone asked him how his faith has grown since he became president. And
I saw that.
It was on Fox News. It was like a Fox News town hall or something. And he does not answer the question, goes on this like complete rabbit trail, ends up talking about what the FBI is doing to Catholics is terrible, and I still don't really know what that is about. And then talks about how could any good Catholic vote for Biden? He's a terrible person. Like, Biden's Catholic. But like just like didn't answer the question. He was just like, I know many evangelicals, and people ask me when I first name, like, you've lost so much. You've lost so much. You lost so much. He was like, you lost so much. Why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? You lost so much. That was basically his answer. But he did that over like 4 minutes. Anyway.
Well, if I can add to that, I'm reading the book right now called "I Alone Can Fix It." It's about Trump's last year in office, and the thing is, it's bad that he's a cult leader and has taken over people's brains like this, but it's even worse that he's such a stupid human being. He's like, when you read these stories of people behind the scenes, he's not a smart guy. He's a huckster, and he's a carnival barker, and he knows how to manipulate people, but he's not a smart human being. So it's just sad that this is happening with such a lowbrow, unintelligent human form.
Well, I feel like also like all of the evangelicals that have thrown their hat in with Trump, they have to know he's not a good follower of Christ, just based on gestures to everything.
Well,
Like
even David did things wrong, April. Even David was,
right. Like, but they're making the excuses. Like it feels like when you're a diehard sports fan and your team loses and you come up with all these excuses of like, oh, it was the ref's fault, or no, that guy just like totally threw it away, or we were injured, or they played dirty. And, like you come up with all these excuses to explain away why you actually lost instead of just admitting you just lost. But here it's like, oh no, this guy has to be our savior. And here's all the excuses. Because I posted that video of Trump responding to that question. Because, when he ran back in 2015, 2016, the excuse was, oh, he's just a baby Christian. Like, God can use anybody. Like, who are you to judge? And blah, 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 blah. But like, because James Dobson said he had said the prayer in private. So he was born again now, the sinner's prayer. But the same old excuses just came out. They watched the clip. I played the clip unedited, and they watched that, and they were just like, oh, well, he wouldn't answer the question because people like you would just twist his words. Or, well, who are you? Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. And he was like, you can't judge his faith based on one clip. I was like, well, I could judge it based on like all of his crimes and the sexual assault and him bragging about that, if you'd rather.
Well, I was reading the words of a woke theologian one time who said that, we'll know a tree by the fruit that it bears. And
he preached that woke Matthew 5 sermon.
That woke Sermon on the Mount. And I actually don't think that they care if Trump is a good Christian, because they don't care if they're good Christians. So like, what does it matter? It is about power. It's about privilege, and it's about keeping both of those things. It doesn't matter either way to them if they're good Christians, if Trump is, good Christians. Like, none of that matters. And so, they'll make excuses for it. Like you said, I mean, they'll make excuse after excuse for him, but it's only because they've made excuse after excuse for everything else that they've ever done. It's what the evangelical church is best at. It's being on the absolute wrong side of history and then making up excuses, or, cherry picking Bible verses, or twisting words in scripture to just control power. That's it. That's all.
That's true for the people at the top. But I think for your everyday average person, I don't think they have the self-awareness to recognize that in themselves. Like, I feel like they're just saying all the talking points that their leaders are telling them to say.
Sure.
Because I just know, like, when granted, Trump has totally changed the Christian nationalism game, but I used to be very much in the good Christians vote Republican. America is the Christian nation. Like, we need to save the world. We need to save souls. We need America to be Christian. We need to legislate morality. Like, I was in that camp, and I at the end of the day thought I was a good Christian doing that. Like, I thought that was what good Christians did. So I wouldn't throw everybody into that camp. Like, I'm sure I would definitely put the leaders in that camp. Like, they have to know what they're doing. But your every average day people, I think a lot of people have just been very heavily indoctrinated. Like, even just the fact that they still think the election was stolen. There's been zero evidence of that. Like, they're believing all of these things despite no evidence and no facts. Like, that's a brainwashed situation. Not that it negates any harm that they're doing, because they're still causing harm, but I don't think it's like this like overt, they know what they're doing and they know they're doing bad.
Yeah, but like, at what point, and I agree, because I mean, I think all three of us could easily say, that we were absolutely there, and I agree with you. And I do agree. I think that the, the pawns in the game or whatever are just being good soldiers. But the question is, like, at what point do you become responsible for your indoctrination? Yeah. You are still harming people. You are still hurting people. You are still causing problems. And so, yes, you may be buying a false bill of goods, but like, at what point is it your fault that you paid the money for the snake oil? Like,
Yeah.
I think there has to be like a bigger conversation about, yeah, a bunch of people are being swindled and a bunch of people are being indoctrinated, but like, at what point do the people who are being indoctrinated take responsibility for the harm that they are also causing? Because it's not the Donald Trumps of the world that are messing up Thanksgiving dinners. It's Uncle Joe down at the end who blabs the Newsmax talking points. He doesn't know shit about anything else. That's all he knows. But like, he is now responsible for, you know, his niece who is dealing with her sexuality and hearing him spew all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
I
like,
think there is something, Jeremy, to that. And I haven't, I'm processing verbally a little bit here, but yeah, Trump gave people permission, and this may even be subconscious, but I think he gave particularly a lot of white people permission after we've been in a society for a long time that's been challenging everybody to rethink how they look at race and racism and systems and systemic racism. And here comes Trump and says, forget that. You don't have to do that. That there's no racism. Our country's great. You're all great. You're amazing. These people who are telling you that, you know, you should think about changing the way you live because racism has harmed these other people. You don't have to do that anymore. You're great. And I think there is something, and then the abortion issue gives the Christian the cover to like, oh, I'm not in this so I can be racist. I'm in it because I want to save children. And even QAnon is all about stopping pedophilia and human trafficking, which are terrible issues that they've weaponized to manipulate people into the cult. I think there is, when President Obama got elected, I was asking my friends in the church industry, like, we seem pretty racist here. And everybody's, oh, no, this is not about race. This is about abortion. And I'm like, no, we seem pretty racist. And I think Trump blew the cover off of it, that we did have a white Euro foundational culture that none of us would have said, I'm racist. But I've come to recognize that was a foundational premise of, like, you know, Ronald Reagan started it with the welfare moms and the you know, those little buzzwords and dog whistles. And I think there is something of Trump and right-wing politics giving us permission to be our worst selves that people buy into, maybe even subconsciously, and say, oh, I'm doing it because of abortion. But yeah, if I get my taxes cut, that would be good too. And if I don't have to pay for somebody else's college loan deferment, that's good too, because I really do kind of deep down want to be selfish with my own money.
So when we proselytized as evangelicals, we would tell people, we've given you the gospel, you're now responsible for it, right? Like, you have heard the good news of Jesus Christ. Now you have to accept and believe and, you know, walk a different way, whatever. So now that I'm reverse proselytizing almost to an extent, right? It's like, you've heard diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now you're responsible for it. Like, so what's fair for the goose is fair for the gander, friends. Like, you can't sit there and say, yeah, maybe you've been surrounded by conservative theology and you hear conservative, you know, talking points from the pulpit and everything else. But you can't say you've never heard that we should treat people of color better. You can't say you've never heard that we still have systemic race issues and systemic gender issues and inequality issues with our siblings in the LGBTQIA plus community. You know, you can't say that you haven't heard it. So guess what? If it's fair that, you know, everybody that you've ever said the gospel to is now responsible to receive it, you are now responsible to receive diversity, equity, and inclusion, the gospel of the real Jesus.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a fine, I mean, I think we are always responsible for our actions, regardless of what we're indoctrinated or something. Like, if we're harming people, I think ultimately we are responsible for that. But I do think Trump, kind of like what Paul was saying, I think Trump changed what Christian nationalism was, in the sense that when we were in it, we at least feigned integrity. You know, like, we at least voted for people at the time that we thought were moral people, that were good family men, that, George Bush, for all of his problems in the presidency, was a good family man. He had good morals that we thought, like he was not sleeping around with porn stars
And
and
Bill
paying them
Clinton
off.
didn't. And we were, we
Right.
hated
And
Bill Clinton because he didn't have morals, right?
exactly. And we were the party that would never, if we were like, if we had a candidate that did that, we would, we said all these things. The Republicans then said all these things, and we were supposed to be the party of morals. Jerry Falwell, we were the moral majority. Like morality mattered in the sense that we at least put on the mask that morality mattered. But with Trump, that mask is gone. Like there's no, what morality is he pushing other than saving children and sleeping with porn stars and getting crimes? Like, I don't know. It's like
I think he thinks morality is for suckers, right?
He's also never asked for forgiveness. He literally said he's never asked God for forgiveness when they asked him. And we know there are plenty of things, if you follow the Bible based on the sins that are listed in there, that he should have asked for forgiveness a few times.
I actually, this actually may be the one and the only thing that I am thankful for Donald Trump for. And that's because we weren't the party of morality. We were the party of sweep it under the rug and pretend like we were the party of morality.
Right.
Now the truth is in the light. It is clear as day. And Trump has given these people to, the freedom to bring their garbage out and show us how twisted and demonic they are. Right. So I guess for me, like, I would rather the snake I can see on the porch than the one that's in the grass.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you're right, Jeremy. The blessing of Trump is that he's exposed all this stuff and exposed our hearts. And I'd love to ask you guys, like, what do we do about it? I mean, a group I was just in last night, everybody's talking about, but the Democrats are bad too, and there is some truth to that. They're not an existential threat to our democracy in our country, but part of the reason we don't have health care for everybody in the country is because the healthcare companies pay Democrats as well as Republicans. And so Democrats aren't jumping on, let's get nationalized healthcare through either, at least not all of them. But what do we do with our families and friends and what we see? I have people ask me this all the time, like, shouldn't you be building a bridge? Shouldn't you be reaching out to people and kind of understand where they're coming from? And I don't know how to do that with people who are saying Joe Biden, has children hidden in the basement of the White House. I don't know how to build a bridge to that person.
Or
and
that
in
he's
some
a
ways,
clone.
I think we're beyond help at this point.
But that's the extreme though, isn't it, Paul? Like, I mean, I know that it's like more people than what we care to admit, but like, I don't know.
Okay, well, let me say it as, Democrats are the ungodly party then. Just let's take it to a less extreme.
That's more fair. Yeah.
They are against God in the Democratic Party.
I think the only way to engage in that is personal relationship. And even then it can get tricky because like family is tricky. I don't know. Cause it's hard. You can't start off having a fair shot at a conversation if the other person thinks you are demonic or are like choosing to side with demonic things, to have to prove that you're worthy of a conversation before you even get to have that conversation. It's almost a non-starter. So it's almost like you got to be like incognito underground and not tell anyone who you are or what you vote for politically until you become friends. And then you just like casually be like, oh yeah, because then they'll know you and they know you're not a demon or have one. Hopefully you haven't manifested any. But yeah, I don't know. It's a sad It's a hard place to be because I find myself walking on eggshells. I mean, obviously, everybody I'm meeting here now is new because I just moved to a brand new city. I don't really know anybody. And so I'm constantly wondering, like, will they be my friend once they find out? Which, granted, that's gone down some because I live in it's a mostly progressive city. But like my youngest goes to a Baptist preschool because and I shared this recently, but I'll share the story. But my daughter goes to a Baptist preschool, and everyone's like, "Why did you send her to a Baptist preschool?" Well, one, there's a million wait lists, and they're hard to get into. And if if she can get into it, it's like $1,000 a month, and we cannot afford that. So it's like affordability. Anyway, regardless, it's 1 year. She'll be fine. She's going to public school next year. But Beecher really wanted me to ask up front, is it okay that my spouse is non-binary? Sometimes they dress gender non-conforming. They'll want to pick her up from school most days because it's right by their work. Is that okay? And this is when I enrolled her, and she was like, "Oh yeah, we allow anyone who's on the safe list or whatever to pick up a child." We're like, okay, cool. But then, it's one thing to say it, and it's another thing like when Beecher's coming in fresh from teaching and they're in a dress and they pick up their daughter from the Baptist preschool. And so that happened for the first time, and I got an email from the director, and the email was very kind, and was saying, like, hey, she was very respectful. She's had some questions like, do you have any resources for children? Like, how do we explain this to kids who have questions? And, it's just, my guard went up, but she's like, I'd love to meet and talk about it. And I was like, great, I can meet you tomorrow. So I met with her, and those types of interactions are just really uncomfortable because I don't know what I'm going to get. And most of the time,
let's meet for coffee.
Right. Most of the time it's me having to show all the ways in scripture and like the interpretations and like the original text and like why it's okay and why we can exist and be Christian. But I went in, and she was like so kind and accepting and genuinely wanted to learn. She's like, I am ignorant on this and I want to know more. And she wanted to make sure that we felt comfortable with how she was responding to parents who were reaching out, asking questions. She was like, I don't want to say anything too simple. I want to make sure I'm respectful of you and Beecher. And it was like the most refreshing thing. I actually like teared up in the meeting, which she probably thought I'm like, what a weirdo.
And in your TikTok video, which
I know, I
really
recorded
sweet.
it. I was just so like, but if I didn't have that conversation with her, I would have assumed she was conservative and a Trump supporter. I would have assumed all of these things about her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like, yes, we are in a dire situation. The people at large in republicanism and evangelicalism, like, the system is corrupt. The institution is corrupt. That is the problem. But I do think there's a lot of really good people that get swept up in it that aren't hyper political. They just vote Republican because their families always voted Republican. They've always voted Republican. But like in a personal one-on-one situation, they actually care about people. And it's hard for me to I would have never thought that coming from this Baptist church. And then she told me that apparently the church, they had a same-sex couple that are deacons at their church. And I'm pretty sure the church is not affirming, but I was like,
wow,
what?
Well, they may be actually. So
I went to their website and I didn't see anything. And usually if it doesn't say, they're not.
So there's actually a, so there's obviously the SBC, and it's the one that's number one,
Right.
the biggest in the world, I guess, at this point. But then also, the one that we hear about the most. But the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship is actually a whole nother lineage of Baptists who have started being affirming. And so it's really interesting. I think it is challenging, like how they work through theology with also being affirming, but hey, listen, a step is a step, and it's certainly good. So if they are ordaining people into the deaconhood from same-sex marriages, then I would assume that the church, or at least the church,
I don't think they're ordaining them. I think they're just deacons. Like,
you have to, in the Baptist church, you have to ordain them as deacons.
But there's a bunch of different Baptist denominations, and every single Baptist denomination.
Yeah.
Oh. That was not the vibe I was getting, but because she said she was surprised. She told me, anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't think they're affirming, but regardless.
And meanwhile, the Mennonite brethren, now, there are Mennonites, and then there are Mennonite brethren, and the Mennonite brethren are the evangelical wing of Mennonites. And so I have some very good Mennonite friends, and a church in our town was kicked out by the Mennonite brethren because not only has the MBs now ruled that you cannot be affirming and be a part of their denomination, you can't even talk about being affirming. You can't even have a discussion about it without getting yourself into trouble. And that's, it just feels like lines are being drawn, and that we're in a season almost like where Jesus was to say, hey, the temple's coming down, guys. With the church you've known is not going to exist in a very short period of time. And you better look to what's coming on the other side of this.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great segue. So let's run to a mid-roll real quick. And then on the other side, I think it's going to be interesting. Let's kind of talk about our spiritual journey. And we lived a whole lifetime this summer. Let's see where that left us.
All right.
You got it, April?
Loving Evangelicalish? Follow us to catch all the latest content and encouragement. You can check us out on TikTok by following @Evangelicalish, or subscribe on YouTube by searching Evangelicalish. That's evangelical with an ISH. And don't forget to catch our live streams each and every single Wednesday night on YouTube at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 Pacific. And now, back to the Evangelicalish podcast.
Yay.
And we're back.
Yay.
Wait, sorry, not to go back. Which did you say? Did you say Cooperative Baptist?
Yeah, the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship.
They are Cooperative Baptist. I just looked it up.
Yeah, so they're affirming.
Oh, interesting.
Oh my
Cooperative
gosh.
Baptist.
Yeah.
I had no idea. They don't have anything on their website.
They have always been a lot more liberal than the SBC, and SBC pastors. And like when I was in seminary, they were like, do not, they're the most liberal, hypocritical, and then in the last several years, they have really made a push to be inclusive and affirming, and it's been exciting. So
I did not know that. I totally judge them by their Baptist steeple.
So, and that's why a lot of those churches have quit using Baptist in their name, because it smells like dead fish. So, I mean, like, I get it, but you also have to be careful, because that's a bait and switch that a lot of the bad Baptist churches do too.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I'm used to that bait and switch. So
I noticed Peg said earlier that her Baptist church didn't ordain deacons. Actually, so probably what was happening in that situation, just FYI for folks who are out there wondering, because I'm a nerd, they were probably ordaining the deacons and putting them on a board. And so it was still qualified as the same way under the church structure, because in Baptist life, you have to have ordained deacons. That's the thing.
I have never heard of ordaining deacons.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
We're Pentecostal. We didn't ordain our deacons.
We didn't even ordain our pastors.
Half the time.
Yeah.
But like when I was growing up, if a man, because only men could be on the board, if a man was divorced, he could not be on an Assemblies of God board. So interesting stuff. So let's talk about it. What does a spiritual journey look like now? I think part of what we're trying to do here with this community, like, okay, where are we going from here? Maybe a bit. We have fun sort of processing our Trump angst and all of these things, but I'd just be interested to hear from you guys and share where are you all on your spiritual journey now that that you've what'd you call it? Reverse evangelized it now, Jeremy?
Yeah. I'm proselytizing to the evangelicals. I'm a
Prayed
missionary.
the unsinner's prayer.
Yeah.
Oh, if you're going the other way, is it the Christian prayer? Like
You've
the
repented of your
anti-sinner's prayer.
Christianity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we could do all sorts of stuff. We could hand out tracts, and it's like, like an acronym like woke, and it stands for different things, like,
Mm.
yeah, because they had the ABCs, admit, believe, confess. So we could be, woke.
Well, and WWJD, but they also had like frog, which was fully rely on God.
Fully rely on God.
And they had, what was the other one? There were other ones. Was pray one?
Dog was one, depending on God.
I think pray was an acronym also.
Yeah, I think it was. They love the acronyms. Okay. They love the acronyms.
And then there was go to Christian college to get your MRS degree, right?
MRS degree. Yeah.
The amount of times that joke was said in chapel at my Christian college.
Yeah.
Like to us women, like, and we know you girls are only here to get your MRS degree. And everyone laughed. I probably laughed too. It was like,
Yeah. That was always engaged in 6 months or your money back,
Ring by spring.
Joseph Yu says I owe him money. What do I owe him money for?
I don't know. He's been trolling you all night.
He's been trolling me all night. I finally had to give him the attention he wants. Okay. Like, eventually, like, you got to nod and smile at the kid screaming in the corner.
Jeremy, start us off. What does a spiritual journey look like for you today?
It is, it's a lot of freedom, and peace. I don't have a lot of anxiety, and not even, even when I was in like the throes of evangelicalism, like I didn't have like rapture anxiety later on in life. I certainly did as a kid. I think we all did as kids, but I didn't worry about that as much. Like, I knew I was a good soldier. I knew I was doing the right things, and whatever in that world. But it was the challenge and the struggle of like, I think I fought a lot as a church staff member, as a pastor, like, doing what was right, based on what I believed that God wanted versus, the church tradition or the church structure or the person who tithed a bunch of money. And I don't have to answer those questions or fight those battles anymore. So there's a lot of freedom in that. And that's probably very niche, but that's just personal for me. I think as far as my personal journey, I just love Jesus a lot more than I used to. And I think that I can identify more with the ministry that he did and the work that he does, or that he did, because I see how he caught all the haters and the trolls of his day. And so it's been really freeing just to know Jesus a little bit better, I think, for me personally. And I know that's not everybody's journey as they deconstruct, and that's totally okay. But then also, and the biggest thing for me, this has been the biggest thing, is just finding freedom in being able to authentically love people for who they are, no matter what their religious beliefs are, their worldview beliefs are, their sexuality is, any of those things. There is just tons of freedom in just being able to look at somebody and say, I personally believe you were made in the image of God just the way you are. I love what you believe. I love what you love. And it just is so much more healthy and safe. And so yeah, I think this season is just really positive for me in my spiritual walk, just because I've just really started to just feel that freedom of just being able to love like Jesus loved. And I know that's what we've talked about for, years now, like several years on this podcast, or a couple of years, whatever. But I don't know. I think probably just in the last 6 months have I just started to really be able to experience that freedom and not feel like it's a fight, but just to enjoy humanity for what it is. And that's been great.
Yeah, because I feel like before we loved people, but it always came with a cost or an ulterior motive. Like if I
Yeah.
couldn't genuinely love someone if they were in what I deemed to be a quote unquote sin, because I felt like I would be enabling that and then sending them to hell and their blood would be on my hands. And I don't know. It's just I don't know if y'all used to do this, but when I would meet new people, when I was like very evangelical and Pentecostal, I would somehow find out pretty quickly if they were Christian or not because it mattered. Because
Mhm.
depending on if they were Christian or not would depend, like it would change the course of our relationship on whether I could just be real with them if they were a Christian and we could just be friends because they would get it. Or if I would have to, I'd still be me, but I'd have to like say certain things every once in a while to plant seeds and maybe get them to
Yeah.
come to church, or like to eventually like try to convert them. And then the friendship became less about a genuine connection and more about proselytizing, even though it wasn't
Yeah.
so overt. But just like those mind games, I don't have to play anymore. And that in and of itself is just freeing, just being able to see people for people. And it's frustrating though when I see people who are still evangelical, like planting those seeds on me. Like I know what a freaking seed is. Like I know,
Yeah.
I know you're trying to lay
Yeah.
that seed that you're going to plant, my little flower is going to grow and I'm going to come to your church down the road.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. I certainly feel that. But everything in that world was so transactional. And
Mhm.
so now to have relationships that aren't transactional is
Yeah.
beautiful. Like, because even with your Christian friends, right? Like it was like, you have to hold me accountable, or, like, and there was just all these eggshells all the time. It seemed like on the
Yeah.
floor. And so that was hard. Lauren asked in the comments, like, um, how does that freedom translate? Yeah, how does that freedom translate with people who are actively hateful? I think that's a really good question for you too, April, with what you're sharing. Like, and maybe all, just all three of us, but I kind of how have you navigated, like, finding this like true love and kindness towards people and acceptance and all of those things, and then like hold that in the same grasp as like these people who are trolls and hateful and Trumpers and all these things that we just spent time dishing about.
Yeah. I think it's a little harder to, well, it's harder to love any type of parasocial interaction because I don't know anything about these people who are coming in and doing like drive-by, hate speech.
Hate comments.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's not a conversation. It's so it's to me it's less I know it's a person, but it's hard to see them as a person. It's like, whiskey dick 159.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Whiskey dick.
it sounds like I
Not about a good old whiskey dick.
but yeah, I think, well, one, I laugh about it, which is probably, I don't know if that's good or not, but I like to, like,
Yeah.
it's disarming to just laugh about some of the things they say are so just dumb, and like it's hateful, yes, but it's also like, how do you really think that? Like I had someone recently tell me, I was like making a joke about a true thing. I was just telling someone, like, it's wild to me that a lot of evangelicals like want me to divorce my spouse because they're non-binary, because I'm apparently living in sin, being in I guess a queer relationship or whatever. And so I was just saying, like, the irony of telling someone they should get divorced, which Jesus actually talked about that you shouldn't do. And I'm not saying anything about divorce, but I'm just saying based on their like dogmatic scripture, like they would literally rather me get divorced than like keep my vows that I made at my Christian wedding
Before God, by the way.
before God. So I was
Yeah.
I lamented this in a tweet, and this lady, some rando white lady, just drive by hate comment was like, well, actually, I wouldn't tell you to get divorced because you're not actually married, because God does not honor your marriage.
Oh my gosh.
You're not married in the eyes of God. I'm like, I didn't even know what to say. It's like, what?
I think there's beauty in it though, right? Like it's, you talk about just being able to laugh it off and see the humor in it, right? Like when we were very evangelical and people would give us pushback or, the dreaded atheists or, whoever like that we had been taught to be so afraid of, or aware of even. There was always like, oh, like I have to find an angle to prove my faith. Like I have to get on my apologetics and, give this person the truth and that kind of thing. I think that there is even more freedom now in those exchanges, in particularly like what you're talking about, April, people that you just don't know from Adam. Right. And just being able to kind of laugh it off and go, that is wild, and not feel any like conviction to like have to like proselytize them, as we've mentioned before. And on top of that, I can better like people who really actually get to me in those circumstances, because it happens occasionally. I can actually better pray for them, because I actually legitimately love them now, because I think God legitimately loves them, and so I just want them to see the harm and the hate that they're causing in the world around them. And I want them to be awakened to that. So I think just better boundaries, right?
I think it's like, how are we defining love? Because it would be really hard for me to say I love these people that are actively harming me. Like just like human nature, like I love my kids, I love my spouse, I would die for them to protect them. Like I know that's a very deep love.
Sure.
Honestly, the English language, we need multiple words because love is.
That's why you can't have a perfect translation of the Bible. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, exactly. but I think from a like humanitarian perspective, wanting no ill will towards a fellow human being, even if they are causing you harm, like to me, that is love. And I think. But that's like a mild level. Like that's how I would feel about these people. Like I don't wish them harm. I don't, I don't wish anything bad to happen to them. I hope that they live their lives and cause less harm to other people. But as far as like, I don't know, like I think the church was always like, you love everybody. And the word love got so distorted because you equate this love where you love everybody equally because we are all, but I don't think that's realistic to like, and I'm not saying you're saying that.
Well,
No.
And I always think
there's levels for sure.
There's never a moment in scripture where Jesus says, I don't want to hurt the feelings of my people. So before I critique my own people, now I'm going to say what's wrong with the Samaritans and the Romans, just to help my little snowflake followers feel better. Like, no, he never says a negative word about the Romans and Samaritans, or hardly at all. And he's critical of his own who are using religion to put others into bondage. And so I don't feel like I have to, be this centrist, this holy middle person because I'm standing against something that's bad. But I think some of what, like Mitch McConnell, I think is a horrible, horrible human being there in Kentucky, April. I think there is a special place, if I believed in hell, for him. But my heart is broken to see him freeze up in a press conference like that because he is a human being and my humanness kicks in. And then when I see, progressive people who talk about loving everybody, then use him as a meme or something, I'm just like, oh guys, come on.
It was the same thing with like the situation with Ted Cruz's daughter, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think if Ted Cruz got attacked by an entire nest full of wasps, like maybe he had it coming, I don't know, but you don't, all kidding aside, right? Like when it comes to humanity that way, we don't want to see that. But I also echo with you, April. Like, I think that there are certainly levels of love. I mean, Judas was a disciple, but he wasn't in the inner circle. You know what I mean? Like, so it's important to remember that we love people with boundaries. And I think that's another new freedom that I found in my faith journey is that it's okay to not give everybody the same access to myself and to my spirituality and to my mental health. And so sometimes, like, I'm going to love you, but I'm going to love you from over here. And that doesn't mean I'm going to love you the same as I love my daughter or my wife or whoever. Right. But I think love is, it's got levels. And so, I'm going to love the troll in the comments a lot different than I am the people who are closest to me.
Yeah.
Having boundaries is a part of the discovery of this journey for me altogether. And I even had an acquaintance tell me the other night, and I was saying how the idea of God as a being with 2 eyes, 2 ears, and a nose sitting on a throne is difficult for me, because while my dad as a pastor was creating trauma in my life, then he would get up on Sunday morning and say, God gave me a sermon for you guys. And as a kid, I'm like, God, would you like tell my dad to stop doing mean things to me? Like when you're having that conversation. And so the idea of that God is tough for me. And this person, out of goodness from their heart, was like, it's okay to be mad at God, but I promise you, I know God and he loves you. He loves you even if you hate him. And I later went back and sent a text and said, hey, that was hard for me. That was you invalidating something that's really deep and important to me. And I've learned that I get to do that I can even push back on that and say, hey, if we're going to have relationship, you don't get to say, well, I don't care what your feelings are about God. He loves you, even though you're hating him out of your hurt. And to this person's credit, thank goodness, they're like, oh yeah, I didn't even realize that. You're right. So building those boundaries is a whole new part of this spiritual journey for me, because I didn't think we were allowed to have boundaries, and we had to allow people to put up on us and all of those things. So that's been a good part of this journey now.
Yeah. Part of my actual real life journey is Beecher and I go to bed way earlier now because we wake up at the crack of dawn. So maybe we do our hate comment of the week.
I thought there was a story coming. It was a segue.
No, I'm on Easter time. It is late. Late here.
Yeah.
For us.
Well, maybe next week, April, we'll keep going with the spiritual journey and get more in. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut us off. I am starting 2 a.m.
I was looking at the clock too, so I get it. I get it.
No.
Okay. Hate comments, huh?
Yeah. My hate comment of the week was really short, really simple, right to the point. It made me giggle. It was 2 words: fuck you, and a peace sign right next to it. And that was it.
Oh, nice.
I just saw that and I was like, well, you didn't beat around the bush or leave a novel.
More of that good Christian love right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
In you go. Just
in you go.
Into hell. Just
but that was more creative.
Yeah, I know. It actually made me laugh. It's rare that I can be condemned to hell and I get a chuckle out of it.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Do you have yours, Paul? Or do you want me to
go? Mine this week is you are the dumbest pastor. People always, they always
put it in
quotes around pastor. Yes. You are the dumbest pastor I've ever seen. You don't even know that BlackRock, which apparently is some multinational company that's ruling the world. You don't even know that BlackRock exists, and you look weird and are clearly a pedo.
That's their favorite. They love calling everyone.
When you see that acronym or the shortened version, you say pedo or pedo?
I say pedo. I don't know.
We're also talking to the same guy who calls it
Evangelicalish.
Evangelicalish.
I say pedo, but actually I don't say it. I just pedo. Read it. I read it pedo in my head.
So wait. The full word. What do you think the full word is?
The what?
Like that full word.
How do you say the whole word?
Oh, pedophilia.
So it's pedophilia, but pedo. The acronym. I love that.
This is why we love you, Paul.
Is it
never change?
The people for the ethical treatment of animals, PETA or PETA?
PETA.
That's PETA.
Exactly. Thank you. So PETA.
Do people call it PETA?
No, I'm saying PETA, pedo.
But it's pedo.
There's a lot of times that I think that
That's true. But
when
PETA,
when
PETA
you
is not.
shorten something, you change the pronunciation of some of the letters. So it's
That's true. But PETA is an acronym, and pedo is just an abbreviation of a longer word. But you are right. The English language is weird, as we've already
there's
established.
Peter and there's Petra. So
yeah.
Peter Petra, potato.
Oh,
And I grew up in Missouri when everybody else around me grew up in Missouri. So who knows?
Missouri.
Okay, my hate comment came on the video I was telling you earlier about, where I played the clip of Trump answering the question about how his faith has grown. And I will say I did make a little crack at the end, because I introduced it saying, like, remember when they said he was a baby Christian? Like, let's see how it's been 7 years. Let's see how he's
how's it going?
how's it going? And then at the end, I just said, I don't think that baby Christian is thriving. So that was my one joke. That was it. That was my line. That was all I said. So on that video, this person went, I don't know if this is QAnon or what, but it says, April Ajoy, if you took the vaccine, you betrayed your faith, girl. mRNA technology is gene editing. You're no longer God's creation. You are property of the vaccine creator, clearly stated and legally stated in the patents. I wouldn't be laughing, April. You're no longer legally a Christian. You are property. And by 2030, they will come collecting their property. They legally own you. The more you know.
Well, that's my friend. I'm a terrible pastor because I don't believe in BlackRock.
Honestly, the most surprising thing in that is that I didn't know that the God of all of the universe followed U.S. patent laws. Well, she was mine, but she signed this law in this one country in that one planet that I made.
Yeah. Well, but then again, these are probably the same people who don't sign up for anything online, because they would never hit agree and continue to the the user agreement that they didn't read. So
yeah, no, right. Joseph, that was on Facebook, not Instagram. Facebook is wild. They are
Facebook is crazy.
They are extra wild on Facebook.
It's full of boomers, man.
They are. The way that they what is it with boomers and just all capsing random? Well, obviously some of them will all caps the whole thing, but a lot of them all caps the most random words. That's not the word I would have emphasized in that sentence. But it's and then I walked into the woods.
Yeah. And that you're going to hell. And then the endless ellipses, right? Not even ellipses, just dot. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it always ends with some reference to pedophilia or you're going to hell. They always you get into a back and forth with somebody on Facebook. Inevitably, it's going to end with you're a pedophilia, or you're a pedophile.
You're a pedophilia.
You're a pedophile, or you're going to hell, or both.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No,
it's almost like they are so focused on pedophilia. It's strange.
Listen, American evangelicals are obsessed with sex and death, and they don't understand either one.
Projection on the pedophilia one.
All right, we better let April get to sleep, get her beauty sleep tonight.
Yeah, in you go, April.
In you go.
All right, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. It's good to be back.
Yay, we're back.
Go join the Ish community, evangelicalish.com, $4.99 a month. It just really helps us continue to put out this content. And we're back. So love us. You can also go to the Evangelicalish Facebook group. A lot of really good conversations, safe space to kind of just talk about all things deconstruction and just randomness. So anyway, we appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. For April and Paul, I'm Jeremy. We'll see you next week.
Also, we love our boomers that listen. No offense.
Yes. Yeah.